There is a moment, almost imperceptible but devastating, when a woman feels that something has changed. He, who once seemed so present, begins to distance himself. Suddenly, his messages take longer to arrive. His words sound colder. His attention is no longer as easy to obtain. And at that moment, a shadow looms. Anxiety, fear, and the feeling of loss begin to devour from within. Many women, driven by the deep terror of losing him, make the most human, yet most counterproductive mistake. They try to do more. They send messages, seek explanations, propose meetings, and try to revive what they feel is slipping through their hands. But this insistence, although born out of love and fear, only accelerates the fall. Why? Because for a man, excessive need is not attraction. It is pressure. It is not love. It is weight. Jung, in his book, The Dynamics of the Unconscious, explains that everything the soul embraces too tightly tends to slip away like sand through fingers. The more need we show, the faster we risk losing what we want to hold on to. What we don't always understand is that in masculine psychology, what is hard to reach has more value. A man desires what he feels he could lose, not what he perceives as guaranteed. A woman who shows herself to be too available, too attentive without leaving space for absence, ends up becoming emotionally invisible. Overexposure kills the mystery, and mystery is the oxygen of desire. Imagine a precious gem displayed on every corner. Over time, it loses its value in the eyes of the one who sees it. But if that gem is unique, scarce, hard to obtain, it becomes coveted, almost sacred. This is how human desire works. This is how masculine desire works. Today I will show you how to radically change this dynamic, not through games or cheap manipulations, but from a place of deep emotional wisdom. You will learn the art of strategic silence, not as a punishment, but as an act of self-love. You will understand how to invest all that energy in yourself till you become a woman so complete, so magnetic, so fulfilled, that his return, if it happens, will be a free choice, not the result of pressure. And if he doesn't come back, you will have won someone much more important, yourself. Get ready, because once you understand this, you will never again chase. You will learn to attract. When a man begins to distance himself, the first emotional reaction many women experience is a deep sense of loss. It's not just the loss of the man himself, but the loss of the illusion, of the imagined future moments, of the emotional safe space that his presence represented. This loss, although intangible, hits with brutal force. Anxiety sets in silently. Every minute without a response to a message feels like an eternity. Every cold or distant conversation is analyzed and reanalyzed, looking for signs, explanations, someone to blame. The mind enters an endless loop. What did I do wrong? How can I fix it? How do I make him go back to the way he was? And with every thought, the heart tightens a little more. Jung, in his work Psychological Types, warns us that a man suffers because he wrongly interprets what happens inside him as something happening outside of him. In other words, we believe that the cause of our suffering is the other person, when in reality, it is an internal battle between our unfulfilled desires and our sense of self-worth. This anxiety and helplessness are not only painful, but also emotionally dangerous. Under their influence, many women fall into behaviors they would never have considered from an emotionally balanced state. Begging for attention, questioning insistently, searching for answers where there is only silence. And the more we act from that place of fear and need, the more we deteriorate the perception that the man has of the woman. Because in his instinctive psychology, a man does not feel attraction to someone who seems to need him to survive. Need smells like desperation, and desperation scares him. Human desire, as Jung points out in The Psychology of the Unconscious, is born from mystery, longing, the space between the self and the other, not from control or possession. Thus, without realizing it, by trying to force the connection that we feel is breaking, we end up tearing it apart even more. We want to get closer, but in that desperate attempt, we push him further away. We want to retain, but the fear of losing him makes him flee. That's why the first step is not to do more. The first step is to stop, breathe, acknowledge the pain, yes, but not to act from it. Because every action driven by fear is another brick in the wall that now separates us from what we desire. It is an act of immense courage to stop in the middle of anxiety. And paradoxically, it is the first act of true self-love, not towards him, but towards ourselves. In the face of the fear of losing a man who begins to distance himself, many women believe the solution is to intensify their efforts. It is an almost instinctive impulse. If I show myself more present, more loving, more available, he will remember why he loved me and come back. But this reasoning, though it seems logical from the pain, actually goes directly against masculine psychology. Every extra message, every forced attempt at connection, every search for validation does not rebuild the bond. It erodes it. Because the underlying message the man perceives is not love, but need. It is not connection, but lack. It is important to understand that human beings, both men and women, perceive emotional vibrations much before we process them rationally. He doesn't distance himself because he analyzes coldly. He distances himself because something in his instinct screams that something has changed. Carl Jung, in Symbols of Transformation, teaches that what we deny dominates us, and what we accept transforms us. Denying the anxiety we feel pushes us to act from desperation. Accepting it, however, gives us the opportunity to transform it into inner power. When we don't accept the possibility of losing him, we become prisoners of fear. And that fear is transmitted in every word, every gesture, every insistence. And a man, even unconsciously, feels repelled by that energy. Imagine, for a moment, a flower. A flower does not chase after bees. It does not beg to be pollinated. It remains in its essence, open, beautiful, vibrant, allowing the bees to discover it and appreciate it for what it is. This is how self-love in women should be, a quiet strength, not a desperate house. When a woman throws herself into doing more, writing, calling, seeking forced meetings, she unconsciously transmits a devastating message. Without you, I'm not enough. And this message destroys attraction at its root. The paradox is that the more a woman tries to hold on to the connection through insistence, the faster she pushes the man away, because in the male mind, conquest is essential. They do not value what they feel is guaranteed. Jung, in The Ego and the Unconscious, states that the soul instinctively seeks what it does not yet possess, because desire resides in its vital impulse. A man desires that which represents an emotional challenge, something he must conquer again and again. Forcing someone's permanence is like trying to hold water between your hands while squeezing them. The more force you apply, the faster it slips away. It is an act of desperation that ultimately robs you of your own emotional dignity. Need creates emotional dependence, and dependence inevitably destroys respect. When a man perceives that a woman needs his presence to feel valuable, his instinct pushes him to seek freedom because his unconscious tells him that there is no genuine admiration there, only an invisible demand that suffocates him. That's why the key is not to do more, not to chase after him, nor beg for attention, nor try to prove your worth. True power lies in retreating, reconnecting with yourself, stopping the need for external validation. When a woman stops fighting to be chosen and begins to choose herself, something changes radically. Her energy transforms. She stops being a need and becomes a gift. She stops being an obligation and becomes an irresistible choice. The feminine soul, when it connects with its own worth, begins to emit a different frequency, a mix of serenity, mystery, and fulfillment that cannot be ignored. This energy not only attracts men but also filters them. Because a man who is not ready for a woman in her power will not be able to sustain her presence. It's not about pretending indifference or playing mind games. It's about a real change within you, a change that says without words, I desire you, but I don't need you. I can love you, but I won't lose my soul to keep you. And it is at that moment, when there is no more struggle, when there is no more begging, when you have found your own center, that true magic happens. The man who feels your absence not as a strategy, but as a natural consequence of your self-love, will begin to see in you something much more valuable than he ever perceived. A complete, free, powerful woman. And then, and only then, will a new connection arise, not based on fear, but on admiration, not based on lack, but on genuine desire. The mistake of doing more to avoid losing him might seem like the only way out in the middle of pain. But now you know the truth. You don't need to do more for him. You need to do more for yourself. There is a fundamental truth. In human nature, we value what is scarce. This law not only governs the economy, but also the emotional and relational world. What is offered in excess, what is always available, ends up being undervalued. Love, desire, and admiration feed on the feeling of exclusivity, conquest, and the possibility of loss. And this is even more true in masculine psychology. A man values what he feels he cannot fully possess. He appreciates what he must continuously conquer. When a woman becomes too available, too predictable, too devoted, she unconsciously stops representing an emotional challenge. And when there is no challenge, there is no impulse to conquer. When there is no conquest, attraction weakens. Carl Jung, in The Psychology of the Unconscious, explains that true desire is born from longing, and longing only exists in emotional distance. When we are too close, too available, we kill that necessary distance for desire to bloom. Think of a rare gem hidden deep in an inaccessible cave. Those who know of its existence are willing to take risks, explore, and invest time and effort to reach it. Now imagine that same gem offered for free on any table, accessible to everyone, with no effort at all. The perceived value changes, not because the gem is different, but because the perception of its rarity has changed. The same happens with emotional dynamics. A woman who preserves her mystery, her inner world, her rich and independent life, becomes a gem that is difficult to reach, not because she plays games, but because her fullness makes her inaccessible to anyone who is not willing to deserve her. Over-availability sends another dangerous message for attraction dynamics. It communicates that your time, your attention, and your love are available to anyone, unconditionally, with no need to deserve them. And in the male unconscious, this reduces value. A man doesn't just seek love. He seeks admiration. He wants to feel that he has won something valuable, that his presence, effort, and dedication have a purpose. If he perceives that he doesn't need to make an effort, that your love is already guaranteed, his vital drive for conquest becomes dormant, not because he's a bad man, but because it's part of his instinctive nature. Jung states this precisely in Symbols of Transformation. Passion is ignited in the human heart when the object of desire is wrapped in mystery and inaccessibility. When a woman disappears as an emotional challenge, desire also disappears. Many times in the name of love, a woman gives everything, her time, attention, social life, and projects, and without realizing it, she places the man at the center of her existence. This devotion, although noble in intent, is toxic for attraction. A woman who remains active in her own world, who cultivates friendships, who pursues passions, and invests in her personal development, sends a much more powerful message. I choose you because I want to, not because I need to. And that emotional freedom is deeply seductive. Do you want to be unforgettable to a man? Don't give him your life. Give him the opportunity to be part of it without being the absolute center. Be a complete universe in which he desires to orbit, not a satellite revolving around him. The perfect balance is to show sincere interest, but not dependence, to show affection, but not urgency, to offer presence, but not unconditional availability. When a woman learns this art, the art of being generous in love but selective in energy, her value automatically rises in the eyes of any man, not because she has manipulated him, but because she has restored the natural balance between giving and receiving, between presence and mystery. Remember, what is common is forgotten. What is scarce is treasured. You are not here to be easily obtained. You are here to be valued, admired, and above all, respected. When a woman feels that a special man is beginning to pull away, the first natural impulse, almost irresistible, is to try to close that distance with words, explanations, justifications, or promises. It's an impulse that arises from the deep fear of losing something that once seemed secure. However, in the subtle art of human relationships, there is a much more powerful force than the attempt to hold on: strategic silence. We are not talking about a silence filled with resentment or designed as punishment. It's not about ignoring to hurt or manipulate, but making a conscious act of emotional wisdom, as Jung affirmed in his work, The Dynamics of the Unconscious. Resistance to an impulse is not its repression, but its transformation. True silence is a transformation of anxiety into serenity, of need into power. It is in silence where who you really are is revealed. A woman who invests in herself, who keeps learning, who is not afraid to grow, emits an irresistible vibration of silent power. She doesn't need to talk about her value, she radiates it. And on the deepest level, the soul must also be nurtured. Reconnect with authentic friendships. Dedicate time to causes that inspire you. Surround yourself with beauty, art, nature. Everything that reminds you that your life has a greater purpose than simply being loved by another. The energy that was once directed towards him now becomes a centrifugal force that builds a universe of its own. And when a woman becomes her own universe, when her happiness no longer depends on external factors, something extraordinary happens. Her vibration rises to a level that not only attracts, but also filters. Because not all men will be able to match the woman who no longer needs to be chosen. It's no coincidence that when a woman focuses on her personal expansion, those who once took her for granted begin to feel her absence as a void that's hard to ignore. Because she is no longer the same. She has evolved, she has been reborn, and she hasn't done it to prove anything to anyone. She has done it because at some point, through pain, she understood a radical truth. The most important person who had to choose her was herself. Rebuilding oneself does not mean closing the heart or becoming cold. It means loving with an open heart, but with feet firmly on the ground. It means being able to receive love, but without losing yourself in the process. It means looking love in the eye and saying, "I love you, but I don't need you to be who I am." On this new path, the man who returns, if he does, will find a different woman, one who can love him deeply, but who is no longer willing to lose herself for anyone. And if he doesn't return, it won't matter, because she will have found something much greater: her own life, her purpose, her happiness. Jung wonderfully sums this up in Memories, Dreams, Reflections, when he states, "There is no awakening of consciousness without pain. People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid confronting their soul. You have chosen the path of awakening, the path of courage, and every step in your reconstruction will be a silent victory that resonates throughout your being." Today, you know it's not about getting him back, it's about getting yourself back. Mastering one's emotions doesn't mean repressing or denying them, but learning to navigate them with awareness, strength, and dignity. In the process of recovering personal power. The difference between an unforgettable woman and a forgotten one lies in her ability to master her emotional impulses, especially in moments of greatest vulnerability when a man begins to pull away. The instinctive desire of a woman is to seek answers, force encounters, demand explanations. It's human, it's understandable. However, it is precisely in these moments where true emotional value is defined, not giving in to the impulse to act out of fear, but choosing to act from awareness and self-love. Carl Jung, in The Ego and the Unconscious, notes that the greatest obstacle to progress is projecting our internal conflicts onto the external world. If we allow anxiety to drive our actions, we project that anguish onto the other, loading the relationship with unbearable pressure. But if we are able to hold ourselves emotionally, without demanding, without pursuing, without begging, we then rise above the storm and become a beacon of stability. Emotional mastery is, therefore, the ability to observe the internal storm without becoming it. It's knowing that feeling fear, sadness, or uncertainty is natural, but acting impulsively from those emotions only distances us from what we truly wish to build: healthy, loving relationships based on mutual respect. This is where we must understand the crucial difference between healthy desire and toxic attachment. Desiring someone is natural, it's even beautiful, but emotionally depending on their presence to feel valuable destroys any possibility of authentic love. Attachment, unlike desire, stems from internal lack. It makes us believe that our happiness depends on another, and in that act of surrendering our power, we become vulnerable, anxious, and ultimately less attractive. A woman who masters her emotions does not deny her feelings, but she also does not allow them to control her. She may miss a man deeply, but still choose not to call him. She may desire an answer, but still choose silence. She may feel the urge to seek him, but still choose to stay centered. This internal strength is neither cold nor distant. It is the highest expression of self-love. It's the ability to say to herself, "My worth doesn't change because of anyone's presence or absence. I am enough. I am whole." And this energy is so powerful, so magnetic, that it transcends words. It is felt in the way she walks, in her gaze, in the way she exists in the world. A woman who does not need to be chosen to know her worth emits a vibration that no man can ignore. Emotional mastery not only transforms dynamics with others, it transforms her own life. It frees her from the emotional roller coaster dependent on external factors and places her in the driver's seat of her emotional destiny. And when a woman reaches this level of maturity, she ceases to be an option and becomes a conscious choice, sought after, admired. Jung also reminds us in The Psychology of Transference that he who looks outward dreams, he who looks inward awakens. Emotional mastery is precisely that awakening, stopping the search outside for what can only be found within. Today, you know that mastering your emotions is not about denying your humanity, but honoring it. It's not about suppressing your desires, but recognizing them without letting them dictate your worth. It's not about being insensitive, but being invincible, because in the end, the woman who masters her inner world is the woman who conquers the outer world without the need to pursue it. There comes an inevitable and blessed moment in the journey of a woman who has worked on herself, where she understands a liberating truth. She is not here to be chosen by anyone. She is here to choose herself every day, to be true to her essence, to build a life so rich, so full, and so authentic that her well-being no longer depends on the presence or absence of another human being. When a woman reaches this level of awareness, her energy changes radically. She no longer presents herself to the world seeking approval, love, or validation. She presents herself as a source of self-love so powerful that those around her only have two options: rise to her level or walk away. And in both possibilities, she wins. Carl Jung in Memories, Dreams, Reflections tells us that the unlived life is a disease from which one can die. Living waiting to be chosen, postponing your happiness until someone else looks at you, approves you, or confirms you, is slowly dying. Choosing yourself, on the other hand, is healing. It's living. When a woman stops seeking to be the option for a man and becomes the prize that only someone truly deserving can reach, something powerful happens. She stops being a passive possibility in the minds of others to become an unforgettable presence. She doesn't beg for love, doesn't plead for attention, doesn't compete, doesn't chase. She simply is. And in that authenticity lies her irresistible magnetism. If he returns, it will be because, in his absence, he felt the void of not having her, not the weight of being chased. It will be because in the silence of her withdrawal, he discovered that no one else radiated the same light, the same serene strength that she possesses. And if he doesn't return, she will understand that he was never truly hers, and that her journey, far from being in vain, has taken her back to herself. Because in this process, what she has gained is priceless. Her dignity, her inner peace, her emotional freedom. Always remember, you are not here to be completed by anyone. You are whole. You are not here to be validated. Your existence is already enough validation. You are not here to live through the eyes of another. You are here to look at your own reflection and smile with pride. Jung stated that he who does not become his own self becomes an echo of others' expectations. Today, you choose to be the voice, not the echo, the path, not the destination of another. It is at this moment when you truly don't need to be chosen, when your energy becomes so authentic, so radiant, so magnetic, that those who once took you for granted will feel your absence as an impossible void to ignore. But then, it won't be for them. It will be for you, for the unshakable love you have finally planted and cultivated in the only place where it can never be taken away, from within yourself. If this message resonated with you and inspired you to see yourself in a new light, subscribe now and join me on this journey of personal power, self-love, and transformation. Because this is just the beginning of your best version. Yeah,